It started on a Wednesday night, the kind of night when the wind carries secrets. The town of Briar Creek was asleep, wrapped in silence, except for the soft hum of crickets. But above the church hill, something shimmered. At first, people thought it was lightning, quick flashes, silent, rhythmic. But then, the lights began to move, in perfect circles, blue, then red, then a faint white glow that spread across the sky like ripples in water. Old Mr. Collins, the night watchman, saw it first. He radioed in, voice shaking. "It's not a plane, it's looking at us." The next morning, scorch marks appeared in the grass behind the church. 3 perfect rings burned into the soil. The local paper called it atmospheric interference, but the locals didn't buy it. And when the town's pastor, Reverend Malcolm, looked up at those lights the next night, he swore he heard something whisper his name, not in his ears, in his mind. From that moment, the quiet little town stopped sleeping, and the lights, they kept coming back, each night a little closer, a little brighter. 2 days later, police dispatch started picking up something strange. Bursts of static that didn't match any known frequency. Between the static came a faint voice, almost human. "He's here." The officers thought it was a prank, but the voice repeated, clearer this time. "He's here. He's not one of you." Officer Ramirez traced the signal. It was coming from an abandoned farmhouse just beyond the cornfields, burned down years ago. They drove out there that night. The road was empty. No power lines, no people. But their radios were alive with whispers. Thousands of them, overlapping, whispering the same phrase in different tones. "He's here." Then silence. Ramirez swore he saw something move between the trees. A tall figure, pale and still, watching them from the shadows. They returned to the station, shaken. The recordings vanished from the system by morning. The whispers never stopped. The next day, the town saw him. A tall, lean man, 6.5 feet at least, walking barefoot down Main Street at dawn. His clothes looked decades old, dusty and torn like he'd stepped out of another time. No one saw where he came from. No one heard him speak. The baker offered him water. The man only tilted his head, as if trying to understand what water meant. His eyes were the strangest part. Silver grey, reflective like mirrors catching morning light. By noon, people started whispering that he might be one of them. But Reverend Malcolm insisted the man wasn't dangerous. "He's lost," the pastor said. "He's searching." That night, the stranger stood near the church hill, staring at the sky, as if waiting for something. Lightning flickered again, the same colours as before, and for a split second, every streetlight in town flickered out. When they turned back on, the stranger was gone. Only his footprints remained, leading toward the woods, each one glowing faintly in the dark. The night the storm rolled in, Briar Creek felt different. Thunder didn't just rumble, it vibrated through the ground, like something beneath was waking up. That's when Daniel Harper, a local electrician, claimed he saw the silver-eyed stranger near the woods behind the old church. He told his wife he'd just go check it out, grabbed his flashlight and stepped into the rain. He never came back. Hours later, the storm passed, leaving an eerie stillness. The rainwater didn't drain properly. It pooled in circles, perfectly symmetrical. When the search team went out, they found Daniel's flashlight, still on, standing upright in the mud. But here's the strangest part. The light beam pointed straight up into the sky, unmoving, like it was frozen. People said he must have run off, maybe got lost, but Reverend Malcolm didn't believe that. He said Daniel wasn't taken by accident. The following morning, Daniel's phone was found on the church steps. It had one new video, shaky, unclear, but it showed the church hill under the lightning. For a second, there was a tall silhouette behind the flash. Not human, not animal, just standing there. The file ended with Daniel whispering, "It's not from here." After that, the phone powered off by itself. No one could turn it back on again. By the next week, the town treated Daniel's disappearance like a rumor, but the pastor kept looking at the night sky, waiting. He knew it wasn't over, because sometimes when the wind blew right, he could still hear Daniel's voice, calling from the woods. 2 nights later, a teenager named Aidan Cross broke into the local library's CCTV room, just for fun. He wanted to see if the cameras caught the lightning on Church Hill. What he found instead changed everything. On the footage from the night Daniel vanished, there was something strange. The camera pointed at the church back door glitched at 2:17 a.m. For exactly 5 seconds, the screen filled with static. And then for just one frame, a figure appeared. Tall, smooth-skinned, no mouth, no eyes, just a faint glow where its face should be. Then the screen cut to black. The town council tried to confiscate the footage, but Aidan uploaded it to a private drive before they could erase it. A few people saw it, and one of them was Reverend Malcolm. He didn't look surprised. He just said quietly, "It's the same one from my dreams." Later that week, the library mysteriously shut down for renovations. The cameras were replaced. The footage was gone, but word had already spread. People whispered that the creature wasn't trying to hide. It was letting them see it, and that thought scared the town more than the lights ever did. Because if something truly powerful wanted to stay unseen, it could. By now, Reverend Malcolm barely slept. Every night, he'd walk up to the church tower and stare into the sky. He said he felt watched, not with fear, but with purpose. One night, he recorded a message on his old tape recorder. His voice trembled, but his words were clear. It's not evil. It's searching for something or someone. He spoke of the dreams, endless fields of light, a tall being standing over a silent planet. The creature never harmed him. It only showed him images, earth, fire, stars being born. But then came the vision he couldn't explain. Daniel, the missing man, standing among the stars, reaching toward the light. The pastor tried to tell the police, but no one believed him. Some even thought he was losing his mind. Then, one night during his sermon, the lights flickered again. The same humming returned, low and vibrating, as if the church itself was breathing. The congregation panicked, but the pastor didn't move. He looked straight up, whispered, "He's not gone. He's transformed." After that night, Reverend Malcolm stopped preaching. He left town quietly, leaving behind only his recorder and a single note on the pulpit. They don't kill, they collect. A week after Reverend Malcolm disappeared, strange things started happening again. The grass behind the church, the same spot where the first lights appeared, turned black overnight. At first, people thought it was fire damage, but when the local groundskeeper tried to dig it up, his shovel bounced back as if he'd hit stone. Only it wasn't stone. It was smooth, like glass, burned into the earth, and the pattern wasn't random. 3 perfect circles, each smaller than the last, connected by thin lines that pulsed faintly under moonlight. Scientists from the county lab came to investigate. They took soil samples. Within hours, their instruments went haywire. Readings off the charts, temperatures fluctuating wildly. One scientist said quietly, "It's like the ground remembers the light." But what scared them most wasn't the readings. It was what they found beneath the marks. A faint heartbeat-like vibration, rhythmic, alive. People began reporting strange dreams that night, standing in those same circles, surrounded by light, unable to move. The old librarian swore she saw Daniel, the missing electrician, in her dream, whispering, "They're building something." Within days, the burn marks spread, not larger, but deeper, as if whatever caused them was burrowing down. The town put up barriers. No one went near. But from that night on, the hum could be heard across Briar Creek, faint, steady, and getting louder. 3 days later, a body was found near the woods. At first glance, it looked like Daniel Harper, the man who'd gone missing. But when the coroner examined the body, nothing matched. The height, the fingerprints, even the bones, all wrong. The most unsettling part, the man looked perfectly preserved, like he'd never aged, never decayed, as if time hadn't touched him at all. The sheriff ordered an immediate autopsy. But that night, before it could begin, the body disappeared from the morgue. The surveillance camera outside the autopsy room caught one thing, a blinding flash of white light, and then nothing, no body, no file, no evidence. The next morning, the sheriff claimed there was no record of any body. The coroner resigned the same day, but a nurse came forward. She said she saw something move down the hallway that night. A figure of light walking silently, leaving wet footprints on the floor. When she followed, she heard a voice, Daniel's voice, whispering from inside the storage room. "It's not death, it's transformation." After that, the nurse left town. She never spoke of it again, and Briar Creek learned something chilling. Whatever had come from the sky wasn't killing people, it was changing them. Dr. Ellis Moore, a former NASA scientist turned recluse, arrived in Briar Creek after hearing about the burn marks. He'd been studying similar incidents around the world. Silent lights, missing people, and strange frequencies that always followed. He asked to meet with the sheriff privately. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When Dr. Moore came out, his face was pale. He told a reporter quietly, "You're looking at the wrong thing. This isn't an abduction. It's communication." He explained that the lights weren't just hovering. They were scanning, searching for a specific biological signature. Daniel's disappearance, he claimed, wasn't random. The alien wasn't killing, it was calling. He played a recording, a low hum recorded near the church. When slowed down 1,000 times, it formed a repeating pattern. And within that pattern, a human heartbeat could be heard. The town fell silent. The sheriff asked, "What do they want?" Dr. Moore replied, "They already have it. They just want us to understand why." That night, the lights returned, silent, pulsing, forming the same 3 rings in the clouds above Briar Creek. And this time, every radio, every phone, every speaker in town came alive with a single voice. It was Daniel. "Don't be afraid. They're not here to take. They're here to remind." After Daniel's voice echoed through every radio, Briar Creek changed overnight. The people didn't speak about it. They pretended it never happened. Stores opened as usual. Kids went to school and church bells still rang every Sunday. But behind every smile there was fear. No one looked up at the sky anymore. No one mentioned the hum that still vibrated faintly in the air. The sheriff ordered the burn site fenced off, calling it unstable ground. But everyone knew that wasn't true. The truth was simpler. They didn't want to see what was happening. One night, the local diner lost power for exactly 7 minutes. When the lights came back, every clock in town had reset, all showing 3:07 a.m., the same time the alien frequencies had been detected. At the town meeting the next day, Dr. Moore tried to explain it again. "The phenomenon is intelligent," he said. "It's not invading. It's responding." But the crowd grew angry. Responding to what? Someone yelled. He paused before answering. "To us." That silence. It lasted longer than it should have. Because deep down, they all knew. The lights came only after they saw them first. It was like looking into a mirror that started looking back. That night, people locked their doors and prayed for the sky to stay quiet. It didn't. The hum grew stronger. The air shimmered faintly. And for the first time, people began to dream the same dream. The next morning, little Emily Carson, aged 9, walked into her classroom carrying a drawing. At first, her teacher thought it was just a sketch, until she looked closer. The page showed a tall, glowing figure standing beside a man who looked exactly like Daniel Harper. The two were standing in front of the church, surrounded by circles of light. "Where did you see this, Emily?" the teacher asked. Emily smiled. "He showed me." The teacher froze. "Who showed you?" "The silver man. He came to my window last night." The classroom went silent. The drawing spread through town within hours. Some said Emily had imagination. Others said the alien had chosen her. Dr. Moore analyzed the drawing and realized something terrifying. The geometric pattern behind the figures was mathematically perfect, a design too precise for a child's mind. When the news broke, people gathered around Emily's house that night, waiting, watching the sky. At exactly midnight, the hum returned. The windows glowed faintly, and Emily whispered to her mother, "He says he's almost finished." The next morning, the drawing had changed. It now showed 3 figures of light, one tall, 2 smaller, standing hand in hand. No one ever saw Emily draw again, but every night her window glowed faintly silver, as if someone still stood there, watching over her. Weeks later, when everyone thought the lights had stopped, Reverend Malcolm returned. No one saw him arrive. He simply appeared one Sunday morning inside the church, standing at the pulpit, waiting. His clothes were the same, but his face looked illuminated, calm, peaceful, like he'd seen something no human should ever see and found serenity in it. He didn't speak for a long time. The congregation sat frozen. Finally, he said softly, "They're not from the stars. They're from the silence between them." He told them the alien was never an invader. It was a messenger, a reflection of the human soul projected outward. They came because we forgot how to listen. People wept. Some left in fear. Others stayed, feeling something deeper stir inside them. Malcolm spoke of Daniel, that he wasn't gone, only changed, that he now exists in the light between worlds. Then the candles in the church flickered. The hum returned, but softer this time, almost like music. Malcolm looked up toward the ceiling and whispered his last words. "They've forgiven us." The lights flashed once more, blinding white. And when they dimmed, Malcolm was gone. Only his robe remained, gently folded across the pulpit. Outside, the clouds above Briar Creek opened, revealing a sky filled not with stars, but thousands of faint, moving lights, like souls drifting home. And from that night on, the church bells never rang again. After Reverend Malcolm vanished, something strange began happening, not just in Briar Creek, but around the world. Every night at 3:07 a.m., radios across the globe turned on by themselves. Not loud, just a faint hum, pulsing in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat buried in static. People thought it was interference, until scientists discovered that the frequency, 1111 MHz, didn't officially exist. It wasn't part of any known broadcast band. Dr. Ellis Moore returned to his lab to study it. He recorded hours of the signal, slowing it down thousands of times. And within the noise, he heard something impossible, a human voice. "The light remembers you." The message repeated, always in the same tone. Calm, gentle, almost familiar. Soon, governments stepped in, ordering all research on unidentified transmissions to cease. But the recordings leaked. People started posting videos online, short clips of the sound. The result? Every single clip ended with the same faint whisper, one that sent chills through anyone who listened closely enough. "We never left." Some thought it was proof of extraterrestrial contact. Others believed it was something deeper, the voice of those who had been taken, trying to reach back through the static. And at the center of it all was Briar Creek. Because every transmission, no matter where in the world it was picked up, could be traced back to that one tiny town. It happened again, exactly 1 month after the last sighting. Residents of Briar Creek woke to a low, humming vibration that shook the windows and made the air shimmer. Dogs barked. Lights flickered. Then, above the church hill, clouds began to swirl in a perfect spiral. Out of the center came the light. Only this time it wasn't 3 rings. It was one enormous circle, glowing white, with a faint red core pulsing inside, like a beating heart in the sky. Phones stopped working. Compasses spun. Time itself seemed to slow down. Dr. Moore rushed to the hill, his camera rolling. He whispered into the mic, "It's looking for us." The light lowered, silently, gently, until it hovered only a few feet above the church roof. Then it flashed once, and everything went still. The hum stopped, the wind stopped, and for those few seconds, every person in Briar Creek felt the same thing. A calm voice inside their mind. "You are remembered." Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the eye vanished. But the message, that feeling of being seen, never left. The next morning, unmarked black vehicles rolled into Briar Creek before sunrise. Men in dark suits sealed off the church and fenced the hill. They spoke to no one. No badges, no names, just one phrase: National Safety Operation. They removed the remaining soil samples, confiscated every recording, even took Dr. Moore's hard drives. When locals asked what was going on, the men only said, "You saw lightning, nothing else." But the people knew. They'd heard the voice, felt the light. That night, Dr. Moore met secretly with a few townsfolk in the diner basement. He whispered, "They're trying to bury it, but you can't bury light." He played one final recording, static, broken noise, and then Daniel's voice once more. "It's almost time." Moments later, power across the entire town cut out. The suits were gone by morning, the fences remained. But on the church wall, someone, or something, had burned a message into the brick: "Do not fear the sky." And that was the last night Briar Creek ever slept in darkness again. 3 weeks after the government left, the town's power flickered again. It started small, a few streetlights pulsing, then the static hum returning through every speaker in town. But this time, it wasn't just noise. The signal formed into words, the same deep, broken tone that once echoed in Daniel's old recordings. "Don't be afraid." The voice was unmistakable. Daniel Harper, the man who had vanished months ago. People rushed to the church, holding their phones, trying to record, but every device froze on one frame, the church door glowing faintly with a white outline. Inside, the old tape recorder that once belonged to Reverend Malcolm clicked on by itself. The reel spun, and Daniel's voice filled the room, calm, almost at peace. I'm here, but not the way I was. They showed me the beginning, the reason we exist. It's not a punishment. It's a return. The voice paused. The hum deepened. Then a whisper followed, one that chilled everyone who heard it. The light remembers who you are. Dr. Moore analyzed the audio and discovered something stunning. Hidden beneath Daniel's words were faint, rhythmic pulses, matching human DNA sequences. It was as if the message itself was alive, carrying the code of something human. That night, the lights appeared again over the woods. Some said they saw a tall figure standing beneath them, Daniel, smiling, dissolving slowly into the glow. And once more, his voice echoed softly. The others are coming, not to take, but to teach. Days later, a construction crew repairing storm damage at the church uncovered something strange behind the old stone walls. Carvings. Hundreds of them. The symbols looked ancient, spiraling patterns that glowed faintly under light. Some were identical to the burn marks found in the grass months before. When Dr. Moore arrived, he realized these carvings weren't random. They formed a timeline. At the center of it was a human figure reaching toward the sky, surrounded by 3 rings. On the outer edge, a message written in an unrecognizable language. When translated by computer, it formed one haunting sentence. They came before we learned to listen. The pastor's handwriting was found near the bottom of the carvings. Notes from his dreams, sketches of circles and phrases like, "The light lives inside us," and "They return when we forget." As the team documented the site, the air grew heavy, like the church itself was breathing. The lights flickered again. Dust drifted in the air, forming faint glowing shapes, symbols that matched those on the wall. One worker whispered, "It's not art, it's memory." The church was sealed off that same night, but for those who'd seen the carvings, something changed. They started dreaming in symbols, circles, light, and eyes watching from the sky. Briar Creek was no longer haunted. It was awakening. After the carvings were discovered, no one in Briar Creek could sleep through the night. The hum returned, stronger than ever, resonating through walls, hearts, even dreams. Some residents left town entirely. Others stayed, unable to look away. They said closing their eyes made it worse, because in sleep they saw the light calling them. Dr. Moore began documenting the phenomenon. He noticed the hum's frequency, aligned perfectly with human brainwaves, specifically those connected to memory and emotion. It wasn't random. It was communication. Every night at exactly 3:07 a.m., the lights would flicker across the sky, and the same phrase whispered through every open frequency, "We remember you." The town grew eerily calm. No more fear, no more denial. Just silence, and that steady rhythm pulsing in the air. One evening, the lights covered the entire sky, a dome of soft white radiance. People stepped outside, wordless, mesmerized. Some cried, others smiled. For a brief moment, everyone felt connected, not to each other, but to something much larger, much older. When the light faded, the night was silent again. But from that day forward, no one in Briar Creek ever looked at the sky with fear, because they understood. It wasn't the end of the world. It was the beginning of remembering. It was a quiet evening when he returned. No lights in the sky this time, no thunder, just a stillness, the kind that makes the world hold its breath. Sheriff Evans was driving past the old church when his headlights caught a figure standing on the hill. Tall, still, barefoot, the same torn clothes, the same silver eyes. The stranger. He hadn't aged a day. Evans stopped the car and stepped out slowly. "Daniel," he whispered. The figure tilted his head, not in confusion, but in recognition. "You remember now," the man said softly. It wasn't Daniel's voice. It was layered, echoing, 1,000 voices in one. Calm, timeless. Within minutes, the townspeople gathered at the foot of the hill. No one screamed. No one ran. They just watched as the stranger looked at them with that same quiet expression. "You feared the unknown," he said, "but the unknown was always a part of you." Behind him, faint lights flickered, not ships, not lightning, but shapes of light forming in the air. Human silhouettes, glowing like reflections in water. The townsfolk began to weep. They weren't afraid. They were remembering. Every lost face, every missing person, every whisper they'd ignored. Dr. Moore fell to his knees, realizing the truth. "They weren't visitors," he murmured. "They were reflections of what we left behind." The stranger looked up to the sky as the light expanded, filling the clouds like dawn breaking across another world. "We are what you become when you stop forgetting." Then, slowly, his form began to dissolve into light, like dust in sunlight. The air pulsed once, then went still. All that remained was a faint hum and peace. The next morning, Briar Creek woke to a silence unlike any before. The hum was gone, the skies were clear, and yet everyone felt different. The fences the government left behind had melted into the ground. The church stood whole again, the carvings gone, as if rewritten by time itself. On the altar lay Reverend Malcolm's old Bible, but inside, the pages were blank, except for one sentence written in faint silver light. "They never came from above, they came from within." Dr. Moore spent the following weeks documenting what had happened. He discovered that the entire town's magnetic field had shifted ever so slightly, just enough to alter frequencies in human brainwaves. In simple words, the town had changed, physically, mentally, spiritually. People started remembering things they never lived. Dreams felt real. Old fears vanished. Even the children spoke of seeing the lights inside people. It wasn't mass hysteria. It was awakening. Moore's final report ended with a confession. What we called an alien was the part of humanity that never forgot where we came from. A light too vast for the human mind to hold. Until now. Briar Creek eventually disappeared from maps. No one talked about it again. But travelers passing through that stretch of road often said the same thing. That when you stand near the old church hill, you can still feel the air hum softly, like a heartbeat in the soil. And if you listen closely, you might hear a voice in the wind. "We didn't come to take you. We came to remind you that you've always been more than human." The story of Briar Creek didn't end with an invasion. It ended with an awakening. Because sometimes, the greatest mystery isn't what comes from the stars, but what's been sleeping inside us all along.